All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I have a sweet one for you today. So, big news coming out of New Mexico. The Democratic governor over there really cracked down on guns. It's leading to quite a backlash, and I'll break it down for you and explain why that is. We also have Mehdi Hasan versus Vivek Ramaswamy. And look, Vivek is slippery, man. He is a slippery dude. He is definitely a debate bro, but I definitely think that Mehdi Hasan got the better of him. This is kind of an embarrassing back and forth for Vivek, if I'm being honest. So we'll talk about that too. We have Piers Morgan versus Kari Lake. That's a very interesting debate. They debate a number of different topics, including whether or not Kari's election was stolen in Arizona. Spoiler alert, of course not. But the part I want to focus on is their back and forth on guns. I think that's really interesting. Kari Lake's another one who's super slippery about everything. And then we have Mike Lindell melts down in a deposition. There's a court case against him at the moment, and he's not handling it well. And if I'm being honest, it looks like he's back on the sauce. And then we also have a really terrifying story about why the Trump cases may be in jeopardy. So, look, if you go based on the evidence, I honestly think it's an open and shut case. I think many of the charges are slam dunks. But at the same time, there's this pretty big concern that people are going to have to worry about. Because, look, the guy's basically whipped up a cult where like 25% of the country sniffs his farts and tell him that it smells like roses. And so what happens if you get one of those people on the jury? So we'll talk about that and much more. Shameless plugs real quick. Everybody do me a big favor. Click like, click subscribe. Desperately trying to stay ahead of my wife over on the Breaking Points channel. They grow at a bigger clip than I do, so it looks like it's only a matter of time until they surpass me, but you guys can help stave that off. There's a large chunk of you who watch the channel and don't subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Helps us out tremendously in the algorithm as well, so please hook a brother up with that. And then, of course, much love and appreciation to everybody who supports this channel on Patreon. If you'd like to support it, the link's in the video description box below. And people who support Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack, same deal, link below. I've never had a conversation with any advertiser. I'm very proud of that fact. You guys helped build this channel from the ground up, and I couldn't do it without you. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it here. So the Democratic New Mexico governor took a bold step, really bold step on the issue of guns, and this is causing quite a stir. So in CNN here, they say, New Mexico governor orders suspension of open and concealed carry of guns in Albuquerque. Now, look, headline alone, you might be thinking, like, I don't know, why is this such a big deal and such a national scandal? Because open carry and concealed carry are actually very right-wing policies that, you know, are only in a certain portion of the country. But it's the way in which he did it, which is leading to a bit of an outcry here. So here's what they say. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham has declared gun violence and drug abuse a public health emergency after a string of recent deadly shootings, some involving children. The emergency order includes the suspension of open and concealed carry laws in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, temporarily banning the carrying of guns on public property with certain exceptions, according to a statement from the governor's office. So that's interesting. So it's apparently a temporary ban, and it's only for particular counties. I literally didn't know that until we started reading this article here. Lujan Grisham cited the shooting deaths of 3 children from July through September, as well as a pair of mass shootings in the state. Quote, the time for standard measures has passed, said Lujan Grisham, a Democrat, and when New Mexicans are afraid to be in crowds, to take their kids to school, to leave a baseball game when their very right to exist is threatened by the prospect of violence at every turn, something is very wrong. Under the plan, citizens with carry permits will still be allowed to possess their weapons on private property, such as gun ranges and gun stores, if the firearm is transported in a locked box or trigger lock or other mechanism is used to render the gun incapable of being fired, according to the statement. The order was issued after consultation with public safety officials, including I'm going to never get this name right, bro. Bernalillo District Attorney Sam Bregman, Bernalillo County Sheriff John Allen, Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina, and former State Police Chief Pete Caceres. The order also prohibits firearms on state property, including state buildings and schools, as well as parks and other places where children gather. Under the order, licensed firearm dealers will be inspected monthly by New Mexico's Regulation and Licensing Division to ensure compliance with sales and storage laws. Additionally, state and environmental officials will begin wastewater testing for illegal substances, such as fentanyl, at schools. Wow. The order is imminently or immediately effective, according to the statement. In May, 2 mass shootings in New Mexico left 6 people dead and 11 wounded. The state has one of the highest rates of gun violence and suicide in the nation. Some law enforcement and elected officials say the order goes too far. Now, here's what's interesting. Even, I believe the kid's name is David Hogg, who was a victim of one of these mass shootings. He saw his classmates get gunned down, and he's a gun reform activist, basically. Even he's come out and said, look, I'm in favor of gun reform, but this goes too far. That's the point that he's made. I've seen pretty much a universal take online where people are saying, sorry, it goes too far. But I will also say, I do see kind of like straw manning of what she's doing here. There's this a little bit of a notion floating around out there that she's just like banning guns full stop, and she's doing it unilaterally. First of all, that's not accurate. Second of all, I think there's enough to criticize without overreaching and basically accusing her of doing things that she's not doing. Now, look, on the substance of it, I mean, I understand where she's coming from, and just to give you... I don't necessarily agree with her, and I'll give more on that in a second here. But if you look at firearm deaths in the U.S., now obviously New Mexico is just one state in the U.S. Apparently they have one of the highest gun death rates in the country. I literally didn't know that until reading this article. But firearm deaths in the U.S. are absolutely, it's a fact that they're out of control, man. So we have 48,830, and this is as of 2021. And as you can see, there was a sharp spike going from 2014 until today. And some of that is probably attributable to COVID, but some of it clearly is not, because the trend started in 2014 and COVID didn't hit until 2019, 2020. But look at this. I mean, the old number we used to bring up is about 32,000 gun deaths a year. That's an outdated fact. Now the number is all the way up at 48,830, so basically 49,000 gun deaths a year. Now, when you break it down more specifically here, they have, like, most of those deaths are suicide, so there's 26,328 suicides per year, and the homicides is 20,958. But, I mean, look, it's close to equal, and both of those things are devastating. Then you also have a much smaller number that's unintentional and undetermined, so 549 totally accidental killings and 458 that are undetermined. I mean, look, these numbers are crazy and wild, and it is kind of insane that we just sort of casually and passively accept this, right? Now, Biden and the Democrats recently did some very mild gun reform, I would say, where they closed what's called the boyfriend loophole, and they did funding for what's called red flag laws throughout the states. So the boyfriend loophole is like, if your husband is a domestic abuser, you can legally get his guns taken. But if you just have a boyfriend who's a domestic abuser, it was illegal to get those guns taken. Well, they changed that and made it now so that if you're in any sort of a relationship, no matter what the label or the title, if somebody's being abusive, they can get their guns legally taken from them. And of course, red flag laws are the most obvious thing in the world. It's like, hey, this person's going around saying, I would like to do a mass shooting, and oh, would you look at that? We're not legally allowed to do anything about that. He would have to do the mass shooting first before any crime is committed, or before you could take any action whatsoever, legal or otherwise. That's now been changed. And now it's been changed to, if somebody is showing red flags, like, oh my God, this person's about to be a mass shooter in 0.2 seconds, you are legally allowed to confiscate their guns. And there were some other portions to that. I think they raised the age to purchase a gun. There were some other little portions to that gun reform, but clearly it's just a drop in the bucket to really change anything serious. So on the one hand, I sympathize with her, because I do think this is a genuine concern of, like, we got people dying anywhere and everywhere, and this is devastating, and nobody's doing anything about it, so I'm just going to act unilaterally. But look, my overall conclusion on this is not too dissimilar from, I think, most people on this, which is, I like these policies, but you have to do it through the legislature. It's just, I don't think she actually has the legal authority to do it unilaterally as a governor of a state. I think this is one of those issues where legislation is necessary in order to make it, stand any legal challenges. So I think this will probably go through the court system. It'll probably get slapped down relatively quickly. I will definitely add the asterisk that if this had gone through the legislature first, I think this is perfectly constitutional. Because it's not like the Second Amendment means that you have a right to concealed carry or open carry. No, there's nothing about that in the Second Amendment. You can absolutely have regulations or an outright ban on concealed carry or open carry. But again, I reiterate, I think that has to get through the legislature first. So, you know, while I'm sympathetic because I think she just wants to stop the killing, this is one of those instances where the process is restricted by the Constitution, and if you were to get this through the legislature first, then I think we're on solid legal ground. No court would be able to slap it down. And I think what's going to happen here is the opposite of what she wants. Now there's going to be a precedent set of, like, you know, there might be some overreaching from the court where now people feel like any sort of gun regulations, even mild ones and tweaks around the edges, are never allowed to be done through executive authority. It's got to always be through the legislature, whether it's at the state level or the federal level. And in some ways, that might actually set back the movement to do gun reform. And you know, I don't like that. I don't think that's a good thing. So I wouldn't say I'm with the majority in how they're talking about this, because I think a lot of people are overreaching and saying the policies are bad as such, not just the way in which she went about it. That's not true. I think the policy is good, but you have to go about it through the legislature. So I disagree a little bit with people, but I'm actually surprised. I think the reaction online was like 90-10, 90% against, 10 in favor. I wouldn't be surprised if polling results showed it's closer to 50-50 or maybe 60-40, because believe it or not, one of the most you know, slam dunk issues in the country is gun reform. You know, people are begging for gun reform. I mean, the polls are astonishing. Like 90% want universal background checks. You even have it as high as like 70 or 80% when it comes to a ban on high-capacity magazines. And even, I think even it's a strong majority now for banning assault weapons, when that used to be a 50-50 issue. But gun violence is impacting so many people time and time again that, you know, I think people in the general population have shifted on this. But even though it'll probably be 50-50 or 60-40 in the general population, I do think this will get slapped down in court, and I think the better way to go about it is to try to get it through the legislature. And if you're struggling getting it through the legislature, well, then your only way out is elections and getting people who agree more on the issue with the governor, and down the road getting it effectively. So anyway, that's my breakdown of it. This is there's been quite a firestorm around this issue, and I'll be interested to see what happens moving forward. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.